Don't try this at home.
All right. So you are watching One World View, coming to you from the kitchen at the center of the universe, where the orders come and the orders go, but we keep serving up the same old bowl.
All right, here we are, setting up. It's the planet spinning backwards.
These guys are both very experienced, media-savvy people.
So we're going to talk a little bit about why we do this.
This is probably better news than what they're doing. Somebody needs to take some of this news and do a show about this odd news.
Yeah, you ever wonder about those meditations that you do in front of a mirror? You ever do that?
Oh yeah.
Could you see yourself?
So, you know, sixth grade humor. I think people appreciate it, but that's why they don't want to admit it.
Just the optics of it. You stop and you look.
I don't remember anymore.
They say that if you keep doing something, you get better at it. But here we are, 24 and a half years later, practice every couple of weeks, and we still don't feel like we've gotten any better at it.
We've only done 537. Is this 37?
Yeah.
537.
Yeah, tomorrow morning this show will feel real good.
So the word apocalypse, lifting of the veil.
What is that veil that's lifted, Dan?
That's right. It's whatever's keeping us from seeing.
Uh-huh.
That could be it.
Whatever keeps us from seeing.
Yeah, so maybe that's the time. Maybe it's time to start looking under the veil.
Oh, start
Past the veil, through the
peeking.
veil.
Peek under that veil and see
Yeah,
what's there.
Through the veil.
Look through the veil.
Sounds like we know what we're talking about, but we haven't got a clue. I'm Dan Vega. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I was originally born in Germany, adopted by a military family, and lived all over the world.
From the Garden State Parkway, Route 37 brings the motorist directly to Toms River, New Jersey.
I graduated high school in New Jersey, and then headed to college in Louisiana, and then headed to Houston to seek my fortune. Houston. So I was trying to get into medical school, and then I ended up not getting into medical school, and instead coming to Arkansas to find out which branch of alternative medicine I was going to go into. And couldn't figure that out either, and was asking the universe what I was supposed to be doing. And finally I got the message as I sat in my backyard waiting for the answer. I realized, this is your answer, you're a gardener. I met Roger in Houston and got to know him there.
I met Vega in 1975. We recognized the brother in each other that we never had because we both have sisters, and so he was my brother.
Once we got introduced, we started sitting and talking about things that were going on in the world.
Well, I remember seeing that 20 years ago.
Really?
And
Big
big volcanic photograph.
We could go on for hours and hours. Yeah, we just enjoyed that so much, that sharing that sort of similar worldview about, you know, it's all divine in its own way. It wasn't like we were afraid of it or anything. It was just reflecting on it, just seeing what it was.
Well, it's lonesome in this old town.
Well, I was ready to be out of Texas, and so I had an opportunity to come and visit Dan after he moved to Fayetteville. So I came to visit and met some people here and had an opportunity to stay in a room in his house, and that gave me an opportunity to get out of Texas and be somewhere else. I've been working for the U for 20 years. I work in IT at the university, and I help student, staff, and faculty with their accounts and their passwords and their email and Wi-Fi connections and things like that. I'm a part of the IT service desk.
There's a television studio that anybody can use. Everybody's encouraged, in fact, to go and make their own show. Anything will be broadcast uncensored. These guys are all about freedom of speech. Just pick up a camera and film it. It's called Community Access Television on the corner of Block Street and Rock Street.
I wasn't at first that interested in doing a show or anything. Roger would go down and when it was on Dixon Street, and you could just pop in and you could get yourself on camera and you could say stuff. And
Governor Clinton would rather be in California with 49 electoral votes instead of Arkansas with 4 votes. Damn straight. I mean, that's all.
And he was doing some of that. He was more involved with the community television before I was.
And I'd been writing for a weekly newspaper for years too. And so that had actually dried up by '92. I didn't have a whole lot of places to publish the column that I was writing. And so I thought of television may be an opportunity to use some of that material.
I think Bill should resign because he's not doing Arkansas much good right now.
We knew Richard Drake, a local cat producer, and he had his own show on the air with Richard Drake. He invited Dan and me to come and be guests on his show. We made up all kinds of goofy things and actually quite enjoyed it.
Stand by on 12. 3, 2, 1.
They were supposed to appear on somebody's show one night when I was directing, and the host just never showed up.
The producer came and said, "Hey, we're on the air in 60 seconds. So this was a live show." And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I just smiled and said, "Put us on the air."
It didn't feel totally real in a way. It just felt like, well, this is play and we're going to do it.
And they just took it from there. And that's how their show was born.
Hey, it's almost One World View, Dan. It's almost time, Dan. Almost time, Dan.
There it is.
It's One World View.
We're back.
Hey, and we're a gang.
We never took any of it very seriously. If there were mistakes, it was okay. The mistakes would just be part of the show. And so at some point we were criticized for our bad production values. Well, we didn't care.
Because he and I just were so familiar with each other, we could banter back and forth.
Oh, look.
It was funny sometimes.
Welcome to One World View.
We enjoyed that a lot.
Oh, I know. This is really hard to do. Well, I was impressed. I mean, it's not as easy as it looks. I mean, people think it's easy, but if you sit there in front of a camera and you have to do a riff and you have to keep going for an hour, it's not as easy as people think it is.
Okay, what's next?
People can hardly keep up a conversation in a bar, let alone in front of a television camera, and keep it going. And they were good.
Hello.
The word enlightenment has the word light right in the middle of it, and it has lighten in it.
Roger, I think, represents the everyman.
Then people are going to start turning away.
The person who reads the newspaper, the person who's informed, but they have a busy life, and so they may not see all the connections. Dan is the Sherlock Holmes. You know, the crazy person. Well, the newspaper articles stuck up on their walls, you know. The one who hears the music of the spheres. But Dan's the one who's able to see the patterns.
I'd like to point out that the word intelligence literally means to choose between.
There was a natural pattern between the two, and I think it captured the audience's attention as well.
We used to get a lot of feedback by strangers in the community. Back when the show was being aired in the lower tier of channels, it was Channel 8. It was right in there with ABC and NBC and CBS. And there were a lot of people that saw it then, and it was not unusual for a complete stranger to walk up to you in the hardware store and go, "Hey, I watch your show, ha ha." Which was always like, well, you know, they're laughing. As long as they're laughing, it's okay. They're not pulling a gun out and shooting us. So that was always good feedback.
Private enterprise wants to put up. It was just every 2 weeks is all it was at 10 o'clock at night on a Monday. And there wasn't much else happening except, you know, like Monday night football.
This could be the result of exposure to these chemicals while they were in utero.
Then there was the lingerie show and the Chamber of Commerce show, and I'm sure Vega would have talked about those.
Anyway, so Dan, I guess we ought to get into an explanation of why we are cross-dressing tonight.
Okay. I had a bunch of information from I believe it was National Wildlife Federation about it. It was the first information that was coming out about estrogenic effects of many of the chemicals that are used commonly and what it was doing in the environment and to all these animals and potentially humans. So to feature that, I dressed up in what's called a teddy, which is like a woman's lingerie thing. And, you know, went on there and we were talking about a very serious thing, but we were making a joke, you know, like, hey, we're confused. We don't know if we're one or the other or what we are. And so got a letter from the Chamber of Commerce to the station saying that, from the president saying that he was going to have all of his friends from the chamber watch the show and then get the television station canceled. Well, they couldn't do that, but you know, the threat was there. So they missed the point of the information and they got too caught up in how we looked.
It put us on the map in a way. When somebody wants to get rid of you, then what we found out was that everybody wanted to know, okay, why do we want to get rid of these guys? So they started watching. Okay. But listen, I paid that guy to watch, so you better be watching.
I moved out here in 1986 from the University of Virginia, a rather staid and traditional environment. And sometime in the mid-90s maybe, I was sort of looking at some of the local channels, and I see this guy sitting on a set with like a cat in the hat on, and some kind of weird like plastic globe, and somebody else. You're like, who are these people? And what are they talking about?
Back in the late 60s, there were these guys who did a cartoon, an animation, prime time, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh yeah.
And there was an episode where Santa bought an island in Hawaii because he foresaw that the planet was going to tip and that island was going to be at the North Pole again in the future.
Interesting.
I don't know what to say about the show. I just don't have any words for it. You know, I don't. It's kind of beyond language.
All right, hey, here we are. We're back again, and Santa.
Probably not any better than we were the last time either.
Yeah. No,
My primary thought is that you really need to see it several times before you catch the drift of what One World View means and what it's all about. It's about two guys who are deeply passionate about the environment.
Yeah, remember last year when the fires were burning around Moscow, there was some concern that it would kick up all the radioactivity that Chernobyl had deposited.
Mm-hmm. And the transgressions of corporate America.
It means that half the U.S. corn crop could go towards supplying fuel companies within 5 to 6 years. Half the corn grown in this country could end up as fuel.
Mm-hmm. And the need for us to be vigilant in the lengths to which big government, big corporations do go to manipulate us and perhaps push us down a road we don't want to go.
Phenethylene. I consider myself a citizen scientist who's just sharing what he runs across. I look for the unusual, but I also look for the meaningful, which doesn't catch a lot of other people's attention. The little bit that I catch, I want to share. In its office in Southern California, Beyond Meat, that's the name of the company, works on chicken strips made with pea and soy proteins that have been sold in places like Whole Foods since 2012. I read a lot. I read a newspaper every day. I read a number of periodicals. I read books. I sometimes feel like the universe wants me to know something, as crazy as that sounds. And so I get this and I go, whoa, what was that? And I look, and wow, there's something that's really important. The physician Eugene Shippen in the book, The Testosterone Syndrome, comments that one of his patients undergoing pharmaceutical testosterone replacement therapy showed no response to the testosterone until he reduced his beer intake to 1 to 2 beers a night.
There's a continuity there that links the time together. There's a phenomenon called deja vu, where you're doing something, you feel like you've been there before, you've done it before. There's some familiarity with it. So in the fact that every 2 weeks we get together and do it, those times are all linked together in my head as kind of one continuum, a singularity, if I may, where the years go by so quickly because that's what we focus on, is that every 2 week event.
I mean, it's just become so much part of our routine now. My life is kind of patterned around it. So every other weekend, I spend all day Sunday prepping the next day's show, and then Monday evening, we make the show. So, and then all through the week, I'm gathering information.
Vega preps all of this material, so we get together on the Sunday before we shoot on Monday and review all the material and write the credits and come up with the kind of the funny stuff.
So you want to run down the subject matters?
Yes, sir. And if it makes us laugh, we're inclined to use it. And we keep reference books, dictionaries primarily, and thesauri and etymologies, and look at the origins of words, and we try to create new words, combine new words. So that's part of the process, is to be creative.
Well, here's the word speculator. Lamb, a person easily tricked or outwitted as an inexperienced speculator.
I go over to the FPAT and pick up the camera on Monday after work and then deliver it in my gear to the kitchen at the center of the universe, and then we set up and shoot in just a one camera shot. And if we have a director, we feel like we're, in Fat City, this is good. So that's the setup for it. Doing the shoot is relatively easy. Putting together 2 weeks of material is where most of the work's at.
This is One World View, where we wreck and roll from the kitchen at the center of the universe.
It's Halloween.
When I first came on in 2012, they were still producing in the studio.
Because there are experts are on the case.
There are specific rules that we have here about alcoholic beverages that do not apply out in the field. And so they are able to drink beer at home, and they can't drink beer here at the station. And I'm pretty sure that was the deciding factor that finally pushed it over the edge.
The presence of this highly estrogenic substance in beer is not an accident.
On one hand, we were very sad to see them go, but on the other hand, saw that they felt more natural and they were able to enjoy the process more with it on their terms.
Can you imagine what it was like living in Fort Smith without air conditioning? Back in the old days?
Yeah, I can.
Dan lives in a small home. He's lived there for more than 40 years. The house itself is well over 100 years old. I've done some legal work, research on his piece of property, and the city doesn't even have any records of when the house was built. It goes back that far. So it is filmed in Dan's kitchen, and you better bring your own chair, and I do. So anybody who wants to have a unique experience on one of the Monday nights when they do the show, I'm sure is invited to come on over. You'll never forget it.
Joel's been hanging out with us for a while. He's kind of one of our most dedicated fans.
Frank and his wife have bees in their house.
Yeah, and
I rarely miss. So I'll be 25 a year, say, so at least the last 4 or 5 years.
Heavy snow in western and central Japan.
He just likes it. He enjoys it for some reason. Joel's an interesting man. He's a lawyer, but he practiced. He cited stores for a fast food company. Why he thinks so much of the show, I have no idea.
We've seen that happen before.
When you're able to interact with them on a one-on-one basis, you quickly realize that it's kind of a privilege. Every segment that they do resonates with me. I mean, of television's growth, it's been all around beer. I'm kind of a news junkie myself, and I really enjoy getting their take on almost anything they want to talk about.
And he's probably participated in 150 shows over the years. It's, it's a remarkable thing.
Started moving towards herb beers.
We did our 400th show in the studio there, and Joel brought his neighbors.
Well, all right.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and our live studio audience. You have inadvertently landed on planet One World View. And there was like 25, 30 people in there for our 400th show.
Richard wasn't there. That was my only regret, because we had a chair set up for anybody that wanted to come up and talk with us. Nobody was brave enough to do that, but I would have specifically gone and gotten Richard and said, come sit up here and talk with us about your part in all this. We keep blaming him for it. It is his fault.
You missed it.
Well, the show had a rich history, and definitely, I would say, is one of the most iconic things that we have on public access.
Right there in a little tiny Arkansas.
So they were definitely a defining show. They were I would say, something that everyone recognized because they had produced so many to begin with. Such a legacy of producing here.
You know, I believe everything I hear, especially if it's on TV.
Oh, for sure.
This show, I felt, has to search for a broader audience, and it has to morph. And my view has been for quite a while, 4 or 5 years, that radio is the medium in which they can morph, become like a Tappet Brothers. Once you become like the Tappet Brothers, you can go on forever. They're still on the radio, and they quit making shows 5 years ago. People still want to hear it.
Hello and welcome to Car Talk from National Public Radio with us, Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers.
So I think that's a good objective for Dan, is just get yourself out there on the airwaves. Forget about the limited exposure you're going to get on a public, a local TV channel. Go for radio, where people can tune in their car. Have it going on their little radio in the office.
One way the public access stations fail across the country is when they forget their ties to the community. Public access is it's the quilt of community diversity.
Well, I used to be a high school stud.
And public access shows the community parts of itself that they may not know exists. And it shows us that we're all in this together and that we're all part of one giant community. And I've seen people over the years, people who disagree on everything, but them gladly work together and help each other out on projects, because I think it's the most successful of all the programs the city has, because people work together and help each other.
It's a chance to be creative. So the chance to go do something that's creative it's inviting to me. I want to do that. So we just are going to do it until for some reason we can't anymore.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be one World View until one of them ends up in the grave, would be my guess. It seems like something that they're very committed to, and there's really no reason to stop. There's always new news, there's always fun spins on it, and they always bring it with a very interesting perspective. So we hope that they continue to produce into the future.
Oh, there's no plan to stop. It's something that in a way has a life of its own. I never think, oh my gosh, I got to go do that. It's always, oh boy, I get to go do that.
They'll go out like Butch and Sundance.
Are you trying to tell me something? Can you see the end? I want to still share the information in an offering kind of way, and people can choose. They can say, oh, that's a bunch of bunk, or they can say, well, there's something to that. It's strictly their choice. And we joke through one section of making it that it's like our therapy. To get on there and talk about the stuff, we release it, rather than holding it pent up and going, oh my God, this is terrible stuff. And if you kind of share it and release it, you don't hold on to it. Like therapy, just let it go. Put it on the viewer.
Yay! All right, so we're done. Y'all come back, because we will.
We hope.
Yeah.
Please speak clearly so I can understand your message over those voices in my head. Thanks.